All right. Okay, so we are starting. Welcome everyone. I'm Councillor Glenn Gower. I'm the City Councillor for Stittsville, and want to welcome everyone tonight for our meeting about potential traffic calming for Maple Grove. And before we start, I wanted to introduce a few of the folks who you'll be hearing from this evening. You'll see on your screen Louay Mustafa and Karam Safa and Azmat Perveen. All three are part of our city's traffic safety team, and they're our subject matter experts here today, so they'll be able to answer some questions and give a little bit more context. And you don't see them on your screen, but Catherine Musgrove is here from my office, and she's been supporting us in coordinating this meeting here tonight. So and thank you to all the residents who have joined us to share your feedback and questions and to learn more about what we're working on here. So we have a few goals for tonight's event. One is to provide an overview of the background and what's being proposed as a potential traffic safety measures on Maple Grove. This is an opportunity to answer your questions and to continue to gather feedback. We've already had some questions and feedback coming to us by email in advance of this meeting, so this is another way that we're gathering feedback. And we are recording this meeting, and we're going to put it on YouTube so that people have access to that in case they aren't able to attend this evening. And then after tonight's meeting, we are going to continue to gather feedback and any questions you might have, and then we'll summarize that into a summary of all the feedback and what we've heard, some action items, and some next steps as we go. So a bit of background. We've had a lot of resident concerns over the past few years about road safety on Maple Grove Road in the Fairwinds community. Tonight, we're specifically talking about the stretch between Huntmar and Alon, but I also want to acknowledge certainly Maple Grove east of Huntmar, between Huntmar and Terry Fox, is also problematic. And Maple Grove certainly isn't the only street in the neighborhood where there's issues and concerns about traffic safety. But tonight we're focused in specifically on Maple Grove. In 2020, the speed limit was reduced from 50 kilometers an hour to 40 kilometers an hour, just to give some consistency in all of the speeds in the Fairwinds neighborhood. And over the years, various traffic calming measures have been put in place on the street, including a speed display board that displays the speed of vehicles. That's a little bit west of Warmstone, and then flex stakes as well. So those are the center line sticks in the middle of the road, and those are typically installed between the months of April and October. We're really focused here on reducing speed, and I'm going to show you some of the speed data that we have in a moment, but we wanted to talk about why are we looking to reduce speed. And number one, it's to improve safety. And this is a chart that shows how speed relates to outcomes in the event of an accident. So if vehicles are traveling at 50 kilometers an hour and strike a pedestrian, the data shows that 5 out of 10 pedestrians would be expected to survive. If vehicle speeds are reduced to 30 kilometers an hour, 9 out of 10 pedestrians would be expected to survive. And we're actually seeing a lot of jurisdictions around Europe and starting around North America to start to move towards street designs and speed limits that support a 30 kilometer an hour speed limit in residential zones. So reducing serious injuries and fatalities is the most important reason to reduce speed, but it brings other benefits as well. One is quieter traffic. The slower the vehicles travel, the quieter that is. Improving the overall comfort and sense of safety for residents. And we find with slower speed limits, there's more people who choose to walk in a community, which has public health benefits. And overall, these lead to a higher quality of life in neighborhoods where drivers are traveling at a lower speed. We do have some speed study data that's been done. The posted speed limit is 40 kilometers an hour. And usually when we calculate and do speed studies, we look at the 85th percentile speed. And this is a speed at which 85% of drivers are traveling at or below that speed. And ideally, this value should be as close as possible to the posted speed limit. And when it's above the speed limit, that's when we look at potential traffic calming measures. So in August 2023, this is the most recent speed study along the Maple Grove stretch between Alon and Huntmar. Um, there was a speed study done between Alon and Santolina, and that found that the 85th percentile speed was 54 kilometers an hour, so 14 kilometers over the speed limit. And that's very high. It's actually one of the higher percentile speeds that we see on residential streets in the Stittsville area. So residential streets, we're not counting here Hazeldean Road or Carp Road or even Huntmar, but residential speeds, this is quite high. Now this is just for the section between Alon and Santolina, so on the western edge, and we've requested some additional speed studies to be done this spring. The section further east, so between Santolina and Maple Grove, it's been difficult to actually do speed studies because we typically don't do them when there is construction in the area, and we've had ongoing construction through the Mattamy development a little bit west of Warmstone. We do have some data from the speed board, and I was debating whether or not we would include this, and I'll put this up with a bit of caution. So this is the speed board on Maple Grove, and it's measuring the speed of all vehicles from a full year period, August 2021 to August 2022. The speed board measures speeds at a couple locations. So you're seeing in these numbers the initial speed that vehicles are traveling, and also some when they slow down and react to that speed board. So it's not calculating an 85th percentile speed exactly, but it is one indicator. And as you can see, there is quite a bit of speeding over the 40 km/h limit, but also in that 50 to 60 kilometer. That's a significant number of vehicles that's traveling well above the posted 40 km/h limit as well. Anecdotally, I do hear from a lot of residents, they see a lot of vehicle speeds of 55, 60 kilometers and above showing up on that signboard. But so we don't use this when we're evaluating whether or not to do traffic calming, but it is sort of a source of data that gives us an idea of some of the speeds. So we'll be doing some additional studies this spring along Maple Grove just to determine what the actual speed is now. So a recommendation to reduce speeds is installation of speed humps or speed cushions. Locations are still to be determined, and that's part of what we're gathering feedback on. This should be implemented through our temporary ward traffic calming budget, either later this year or in 2026. There's a significant cost to the speed humps. It's about $15,000 to $20,000 when you add in all of the materials and installation and signage and design. So we want to make sure that they're the right choice and there's support from residents. And the final design would be reviewed by emergency services, public works, and OC Transpo to make sure that there's no operational issues with having those installed. And I just want to try to illustrate what we mean when we say speed humps, because it's different than speed bumps. I think a lot of residents in Fairwinds and Bryanston Gate would be familiar with the John Woods speed bumps. They are kind of an older design or older method that's used, but what we're looking at here is speed humps. The closest example that you can try driving over, if you'd like, is over on Fringewood Drive. Those were installed a couple of years ago. And speed humps are a little bit more gentler on vehicles. You typically can go over these at 30 to 40 kilometers an hour, so under the posted speed limit, and you're not damaging vehicles. And these are very compatible with snow plowing and city emergency vehicles and so on. And there's a variation on the speed humps that are called speed cushions. This is a photo from Knudsen Drive in Canada. And these are very similar to the speed humps, but they have kind of a channel between them. And that's to accommodate wider axles or wider wheel distance so that a large vehicle like a fire truck could travel down this street potentially without slowing down at all. So the wheels would be aligned and they'd be around that. But a typical consumer vehicle, like a car or even a regular pickup truck, would have to slow down to go over these safely. So some potential locations we've been looking at is between Alon and Santolina, where we do have that recent speed study. Near the John Woods Pathway, Maple Grove at Levesque, and Maple Grove at Warmstone or Montserrat, it's the same cross street there, where we see both these two last bullets are where we see more pedestrians tend to be crossing the street there. We do have some additional studies not related to the speed humps that I just wanted to quickly go over. The possibility of a crosswalk at Levesque and Maple Grove is to be studied in spring 2025 this year. We did do a study a couple years back, I guess almost 3 years back now, for an all-way stop at Montserrat and Maple Grove. This did not qualify. The city has a warrant system that we'll chat about a little bit later. It did not meet the minimum requirements to be constructed. We also looked at an all-way stop at Maple Grove and Rose Hill, so that's further east of Huntmar. That was reviewed in 2023, and it did not qualify, with only 9% of the warrants met. And as I mentioned, we're going to be updating some speed studies for spring 2025. Some of the feedback we've had on this so far from residents in the last few weeks, some questions about the studies done to measure speed and how that's done, some concern with emergency vehicle access and OC Transpo and snowplows, requests for crosswalks or always stop at various intersections and crossing points, and then also requests about installing automated speed enforcement, so speed cameras somewhere along the stretch. So I will pause my presentation here, and this is a chance where we can go to questions and comments. For anyone who is on the call and has a question or a comment, there is a Q&A panel that you can use, and you can type that in, and we can read out your comment or question. Now, this is the first time we've used this tool, but I believe you can also raise your hand and request, and you can speak and give us your question or comment directly. And we've got a few questions and comments that have come in before tonight's meeting as well that we'd like to address as we go here. So we'll keep an eye on that Q&A panel if people want to use those. And we'll kind of jump right into the feedback, and starting with some of the feedback we've had from people who've already registered. So I wanted to start with that question about, could we install a speed camera, automated speed enforcement along Maple Grove somewhere? And Louis, is that something you can answer?
I can briefly, thank you, Counselor. I can briefly speak to some of the elements of the program. We do have an automated speed enforcement program, and under that program, they use a data-driven approach to select locations for automated speed enforcement. Some of those criteria that they look at is the compliance with the speed limit, number of high-end speeders, number of children walking and cycling along the road, exposure to vehicle traffic as well. So some of these factors are considered as part of the criteria for reviewing potential locations for automated speed enforcement. I don't believe I know off of the top of my head if Maple Grove is being considered right now for an automated speed enforcement camera, but we can certainly take that question back to our colleagues that work in that program and get their input or response to that question.
Yeah, generally, so far in the city, most of them are in school zones primarily, and other, yeah, mostly speed zones with a few other exceptions right now. So yeah, it's a possibility. And I think if those speed studies we do in the spring really show a low compliance with the 40 kilometers an hour, that's perhaps could be an outcome there. I see we've got a question coming in from Alistair. Thank you, Alistair. Says, I did not see anything for Maple Grove and Kindwick area. So I think by Kindwick you mean the new Mattamy development that's just a little bit west of Montserrat and Warmstone. So that's definitely one of the potential locations for the speed bumps. So we think that there's a lot of people crossing at Montserrat and Warmstone. I know there's a couple of school bus stops there, and it's yeah, a frequent crossing point. So some speed bumps that would be placed close to that area leading up to it. So it could be closely aligned to where the Kinwick homes are, or it could be mid-block. One of the constraints we have, and maybe I could get Karam to explain this, in terms of placement of speed humps, we do have some limitations of where they can go around driveways and so on. So Karam, I was wondering if you could explain some of those restrictions.
Thank you, Counselor. Yeah, for sure. So we have numbers of criteria that we have to follow. One of them, which is very important, is we need a gap of 7 meters between driveways. So we need 1.5 meters from each side of a driveway, plus the width of the speed hump or the cushion, which is the 4 meters. So we need 7 meters. That's minimum of 7 meters, and then will need to be about 20 meters from both direction for many bus stops. Um, we try to be as in the flat areas, not very like a like a slope. So we don't affect the water for the catch basins. We're not supposed to, we don't block any manhole catch basins, so we need to be away from that. Also, if there is a local road like an intersection, we need to be about 6 meters away from the intersection. um what else? Yeah, so these are one of, like top of my head right now, but the major one is, if we have a residential area, it's the 7 meters. Uh, some areas that they don't have the 7 meters, so that's why we have to go a little bit away from these residential driveways.
Yeah, and when you start to look at all the driveways, all the roadways, the options for locations do start to get
Yes,
eliminated pretty quickly. Yeah,
exactly. Yes.
that's
Um,
the
and
yeah.
and for Maple Grove, we have, I think, 2 bus stops or 3 bus stops along the road segment. So we need like a total of 40 meters because 20 meters from each side. Um, and this is the minimum. So sometimes it's hard to find a really good location. And also we need to keep in mind the distance between the speed humps, if possible, between 60 to 150 meters. If that's, of course, if feasible. Sometimes we have to go a little bit farther than 150 meters.
Okay. So a follow-up from Alistair is pointing out the new housing project on Maple Grove. There's a lot of speeding up and down the hill, and there have been some car crashes in that stretch. So definitely that section west of Warmstone is a potential location. And then additional comment: we need one between Warmstone and Maple Grove. Because there's no line of sight going down the hill. Okay, so we'll note those comments as we narrow down potential locations. Thank you, Alistair. Okay, some more coming in here from Wade. Could additional funds be available for Maple Grove from the revenue with the city's current photo radar cameras? Yes, so all of the revenue from the city's photo radar cameras goes back to road safety initiatives. And the city has a road safety action plan. So some of the funding for our ward traffic calming funding comes from the revenue from the traffic cameras. There's another city program called the Neighborhood Traffic Calming, which is a bigger program that funded Fringewood a couple years ago, but uh, because we're getting revenue from the traffic cameras, it means the city can take on more substantial traffic calming projects. So, so yes, funds available can be used here, although we have to use existing programs. So basically, the funding allows for more projects to be taken on every year. And that's why we've got a few sites in mind in Stittsville for speed humps or other traffic safety measures that we're able to move on now that we weren't able to a few years ago. So thank you, Wade. It's good question. From Steve, says, I would like to see a four-way stop at Maple Grove and Montserrat. It would slow down cars coming down the hill and give a safe place for people to safely cross. Given that this has been studied previously and didn't meet the threshold, does this mean it's off the table? Thank you, Steve, for that question. Louis, can you explain, I think we saw there was not the warrants met, but can you explain what kind of factors are evaluated and
Yes.
give some context to that for us?
Absolutely, yeah. So we have a warrant system that is data driven. It's based on vehicle volumes, vehicle conflict at the intersection with pedestrians, pedestrian volumes. It looks at sight lines and it looks at collision history. And essentially, the amount of points it totals tells us whether it meets the thresholds for a warrant or not. What I need to point out is that we don't use stop signs as traffic calming measures. Stop signs, they are there to basically help designate the right of way for vehicles. It's important we put stop signs that are warranted because we want people to comply with the stop signs. We don't want to put up an unwarranted stop sign because that could potentially lead to lower levels of compliance and could potentially basically create safety hazards because people will not comply with it. So this is why we have a warrant system for us to be able to determine whether an intersection is warranted for always stop control or not. So those are the factors that we typically consider. We have other measures that we can use for traffic calming, definitely not always stop control. But we alluded to the sort of the temporary traffic calming program, or as you mentioned, Councillor, the neighborhood traffic calming programs are the two programs that we can implement traffic calming measures through. Is it off the table? We can always revisit in the future. You know, if there is, you know, a new development impacting the amount of vehicles using that intersection, anything, you know, any spike in pedestrians using that intersection to cross Maple Grove. So some of these factors we look at as part of sort of another review, but we need something sort of to warrant that review, a change in factors or whatnot. So those are kind of some of the factors that we look at.
Yeah, well, we're definitely seeing more development in this area, and I think that was last reviewed in 2022, and so definitely something that we'll be requesting is um, to update that study because there's definitely more vehicles and more people in the area. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Lucas has a hand up. So Lucas, I'm going to allow you to speak there. Welcome, Lucas. If you can unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Sounds good. Thank you for hosting this session there, Counselor. And if I may, I have two quick questions about some options about the traffic calming. Is first off about that speed hump that you showed on a picture of it of another road. It doesn't seem to me like maybe just because I didn't see like the cross section of it that it's of how much of a hump, like it doesn't seem like it much of a deterrent, like unless it's a really low floor, like very low to the ground car, like it doesn't seem, in my opinion, doesn't seem like much of a turn, even though it may be good for like ideal for snow plows, so it's not like really impeding. And so I'm just a little bit questioning about it, but not to say if it's effective. And also I was wondering if there's like because even it's a lot of residential like houses on this Maple Grove Road and driveway. So I don't know if there's an option to have cut a bulge out path, like concrete pathways, like so like it kind of forces them to slow down to get between, or but like if that's is that really out of the question because of like the driveways and the snow plows or something like that. It's like as if that might, if that's or if that's too expensive, if I make it, get your take on that, please.
Okay, thanks, Lucas. So you had two questions basically. One was the effectiveness of the speed humps and speed cushions. So can someone, I don't know if Karam or Louay or Asmat, who's best to answer that in terms of how effective they are?
Yeah, I can answer the first questions, Counselor. So basically, the speed humps, the height of the speed humps is going to be 80 millimeters to 90 millimeters, and it's in a tape way. So it's easier for vehicles to climb on the speed hump without damaging the vehicles. So as the counselor mentioned, you can drive on the speed humps up to 40 kilometers, maybe a little bit more. But if you go faster, you're definitely gonna, damage the vehicle in a way. But it's a sloped in all directions, and the height on the top it's about 80 to 90 millimeters. So I know in the picture maybe it looks very flat, but it's no, you can feel the hump. And the reason the city not using the bump is because you can drive up to like 30, 40 kilometers. And I think one of the question in the QA was why we don't use the speed bump anymore. The city have only two options now, like the speed cushions and the speed humps. Unfortunately, speed bumps it's not an option. Yeah.
Is it because of the snow plows in like winter? Because it's permanently it would be removed for the winter time, so it's just not ideal for the snow plows in the winter time. I guess that's why the speed bump, they're too much of a hump, like rounded, so it would be too much for the snow plows. That's why that too, I guess.
Exactly. It's for snow plows, for vehicles, for basically all the vehicles on the road, just to make it easy to drive, but not very fast. Loy, you have your hand up.
You're on mute, Louay.
My apologies. Yeah. So just adding to what Karam alluded to, yeah, so the speed bumps have a more jarring effect on vehicles. They cause more vibration, noise. So we've had complaints in the past about people that live within the vicinity of, speed bumps. So these are a little bit more easy on the vehicle itself and on noise and vibration as well, the speed humps. But they definitely have an effect. We know that they have an effect based on our studies, based on the places that we've installed speed humps in the past. They're effective, and we also tag along that vehicles need to navigate them at 30-kilometer speeds. We have warning signs that say right at the speed humps that you need to kind of drive over them at 30-kilometer-per-hour speed so that you can potentially avoid any sort of damage or safety issue as you kind of navigate over the speed hump. But they're definitely effective, and we know they are from installing them across the city.
And your other question, you're talking about extending the curb at intersections. Sometimes they call those bulb outs. Louay, do you want to? Is that a possibility, or can you comment on that?
Yeah, so that is a possibility. We have the neighborhood traffic calming program that looks at making physical features, elements, adding physical elements to the roadway. The neighborhood traffic calming program has criteria for it to be able, either for meeting the process or the screening for a potential location where we can study a road for the possibility of introducing physical measures. But as part of that program, we also look at speed humps too. The temporary traffic calming program, I don't believe we've ever explored the opportunity to implement, because there is a lot more construction required with adding bulb outs, physical bulb outs. There's a lot more construction. It costs a lot more, and it has a big impact on budget priorities.
Yeah.
You'll be taking away a lot more budget and from other areas of, for example, Ward 6, where you can implement other measures. So and in the end, they have about the same effectiveness, right? You're still creating sort of a pinch point with bulb outs to force vehicles to slow down and make it kind of uncomfortable to navigate the bulb outs. But yeah, so cost is one reason why the preference could be to go with a speed hump as opposed to making reconstruction of the road and adding physical bulb outs and other physical features.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, fully understand much could be the cost and the more complex, but I we're just asked for the opinion and what you thought about it. But thank you
Absolutely.
for your advice.
I really like that narrowing the intersection. We did one through the Fringewood neighborhood traffic calming a couple of years ago at Granite Ridge and Harry Douglas. And there was an existing four-way stop there, and now that intersection, when it was designed 25 years ago, it's very, very wide, one of the widest intersections. And what we found by narrowing that intersection at that stop sign, it has increased stop sign compliance because people just from when you're driving and you've got a narrower intersection, you tend to slow down. So if it wasn't for the very high costs, we would definitely be doing more of these. And this Maple Grove stretch is also a challenge because it was designed and built 20, well, it would have been designed 20 years ago and built around 2007 or so when the first people started moving into the Fairwinds neighborhood, but very different from the design of neighborhoods that we're seeing now where roads like this tend to be narrower, especially at the intersections. So it is a good way. And if we can find a budget and get a program to fund it, it could be an option here. Related to some of Lucas's questions, Wayne had some comments. He says speed bumps are much more effective than speed humps at slowing vehicles down, and bumps are needed at Santolina, Cento, Warmstone, and Lavesh. So those are most of the major crossing points. And his follow-up comment is speed pillows are ineffective. Drivers align their tires to avoid the pillows. So I don't know, Karam, or Louis or Asmat, if you had any comments on that. But
Yeah, I can. So for as you mentioned, Counselor, for normal vehicles and even pickup trucks, they will not be able to go between the cushion. They will have at least one tires on the flat area and the other tires on the cushion. So they will definitely have to slow down. It's the cushions. It's meant for larger vehicles, as you mentioned, for especially for the emergency vehicles to drive past them without slowing down. But for normal vehicles, no, they will have to unless maybe there's mistaken in having the speed cushions there, but they have to drive sideways basically, like two tires and at least.
I have seen cars drive quickly over the speed bumps on Fringewood. It's maybe not the most comfortable ride, but it doesn't completely eliminate speeding for sure.
Yeah,
it's not
unfortunately,
100%.
Go ahead.
But no, it's not 100%. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Like unfortunately, some people they decided not to slow down with, but we try our best to encourage drivers to slow down and avoid the speeding.
Okay, thank you, Cram, and
Thank you.
thank you, Wayne, for that comment. We have a comment from Wade, not a comment, not a question, a comment. He says, I don't find the flex stakes in the middle of the road do anything at all. Maple Grove is a much wider road, and the cars don't feel the need to slow down from them, even with cars on the street. Many cars even drive on the opposite side of the road to go around them. So thank you, Wade. I've heard that a lot about the flex stakes are not popular. They do work. We have done some before and after studies, and I believe they can bring speeds down by an average of about 5 kilometers an hour. In some cases, we've seen that more, depending on the location. Another drawback is they're seasonal, so only from April to October. So that's an advantage of some of the more permanent physical measures, like a speed hump or the narrowing of the intersection, where they're year round and they're permanent, so they have that advantage. But yes, thank you, Wade, for that comment on the flex stakes. There was another comment we received leading up to this that I just wanted to read out. Mostly concerned about the intersection of Maple Grove and Lavesh, with families and kids crossing to get to and from Bandmaster Park and Parlaville Park, in addition to it also being used as a pickup and drop-off point for school buses. So thank you for that. We've heard that a couple times in the email feedback about Lavesh as a frequent crossing point. I used to live in this neighborhood, and it always amazed me that there's no designated pedestrian crossing point between Huntmar and Stittsville Main Street. It's a very long stretch of road. Lots of people who walk in this neighborhood, lots of intersections, but no stop signs, no crosswalks. We are pushing to get one as part of a new development at John Woods, where the John Woods pathway would cross over Maple Grove Road. So, but that still would be quite a long stretch west of Huntmar. So I would like to see something at Lavesh and or Warmstone, Montserrat to make it safer to cross there. We see a lot of people there, but we're gathering feedback on any location that people find are important, and we're going to continue to do that evaluation to make sure they're in the right spots. So thank you for whoever shared that comment. I don't have a name attached to it. I don't see any additional comments or in our Q&A panel, and I don't see any hands up. So I think we can wrap up, but I did want to put up on the screen for people who are joining tonight, and for anyone who might be watching later on YouTube, just how to share your feedback. So if you have additional comments and questions, something that we didn't cover tonight or something that you think of after this meeting, you can send them by email to glenn.gower@ottawa.ca, or you can call us 613-580-2476. We'd be happy to gather your feedback that way. And I think I see a hand up. Lucas, you had your hand up? Let me allow you to unmute. There we go. Want to try again there? See if you can unmute.
Yeah, now it works.
Okay.
Sorry, I just I caught you at the end, so I thought I didn't have time, but it's sorry for the last minute. It's not this stretch of the Maple Grove, but what you know that pathway along the Carp River that crosses, it crosses over the Maple Grove, and so I have in the past gone there, and I find, I don't know if it's possible, like if we have to wait till the urbanization of Maple Grove Road on that, but it's is it about, because is it possible to get like a PXO like with that flashy lights there? Because I think I had a hard time to cross over there because it's about the cars going somewhat fast over there, and I didn't feel like it's very pedestrian safety and stuff like that, and also with that pathway, it continues north and goes to the Palladium, and then it just continuing over there. Like I'm pressing with a electric wheelchair, so I had to go east to Silver Seven, then go around. So I don't know if it would be too much to ask, or in the future to if they can make it like a crossing also at there. So because there's a pathway, so I wanted to go I conjured that pathway along the Carp River, but I had to go around. I couldn't like cross over the median, right? Because it's just, I don't know, that seems like a lot of design work and stuff like that. And I don't know about that Maple Grove crossover PXO thing. It's because it just, that seems like a not a missing thing for that pedestrian walkway path work. So it just very doesn't seem very the flow of the connectivity of that area, especially.
Yeah, I totally know where you mean, Lucas. Both of those locations where the Carp River Path crosses Maple Grove and Palladium. Um, I believe we have done a pedestrian count on Maple Grove to try to get it to qualify, and it failed that count. But that's something we can take away as an action to update that count, because there's probably more people crossing there. With again more people living in the area, and I know I've raised both of those before, and in the design of the Carp River Pathway, which goes back 15 years now, those crossings were not included as a way to save money, which I think, a real miss, because what it means now is to safely cross Palladium, yeah, you have to do quite an out of the way walk, and it really limits the potential for these paths to be a really great way to connect through the community. And now, after the fact, I mean, to do a crossing of Palladium, we would need full lights, and we're probably looking at $250,000 to $500,000. And even on Maple Grove, because of just the type of street. You did mention something important that I forgot to mention earlier, which is Maple Grove is going to be upgraded in the relatively near future. Relatively near future, though, it's probably still 4 or 5 years before that happens. The city's going through an update of its transportation master plan. And part of that update is prioritizing all of the upgrades of roads in our area. As it stands, Maple Grove Road is 2031 or beyond. But given the growth we've seen here, it's one of the road segments in Stittsville that I really want to see accelerated ahead of that. We're already seeing so many people who live close to Maple Grove. It'd be great to be able to walk to the Sensplex, walk to the Canada Rec Center, and have a safe way to do that, which doesn't exist now. So I'm really hoping that's one that we can move up, and encourage people to stay tuned to my email newsletter and my website, because there'll be opportunities for residents to share feedback about those priorities. And Maple Grove, between Huntmar and Terry Fox, is definitely a really important one that we have to get going to make it safer for people to use, and get through the neighborhood, crossing the street, walking along the street, definitely. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Lucas.
And sorry, just quickly, I don't know if I'm taking too much time, but it's when you're talking about priority, like about the transportation, what to be upgraded, what time. Another thing is about the Terry Fox south of it's just where you go when you go going south from Hazelden Road, and then when it goes down to from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, and then you then eventually, like after the Blackstone, there's no sidewalk. So I wanted to go further, but I don't know if I want to, like, not to concern anyone, but I went on the shoulder, but against the traffic on that road. So I feel like it seems that's really missing, because you don't have any pathway for anyone to walk that further towards, like, where the Walmart is. So it's that's not, there's no safe way to get there to that from the Blackstone to the Walmart.
Yeah, so that's a missing link that's going to be addressed this year. There's going to be a construction to connect. There's pathways all along that stretch, but there's a section just south of Abbott Street. I guess not Abbott Street. The next one south of there. Anyway, there's a missing link, and that's going to be upgraded and paved so that it connects to all of the pathway systems. You could get on a pathway continuously from Hazelden Road all the way to Fernbank.
Along the Terry Fox, or like from off the Terry Fox Road?
Along Terry Fox, although for part of it you'd be going up a little bit
Yes.
towards where the ponds are, but
Yes.
it would be parallel to Terry Fox.
Okay, because that's I just feel like it's really I really like to go to that area, but it just not really not very doesn't very pedestrian friendly with the especially with my wheelchair like electric wheelchair. So it's just it's I hope that can be done in the near future if possible. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And closer to what we've been talking about Maple Grove and the Carp River Pathway, there is a plan in the future to in the next few years to connect the Carp River Pathway. Right now it ends at Hazeldean Road essentially, but the idea is to have that continue and connect up with Terry Fox. So that would be a really good link as well. And then for people in Fairwinds and Bryanston Gate, I think in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see Maple Grove connecting to Stittsville, Maine, and some upgrades to the pathway so that you'd have that pathway near Jackson Trails would continue all the way up to Carp Road and beyond. So improving that east-west connectivity as well.
I didn't realize that you said that. So just to understand that path along the Carp River, south of the, so it would be continuing south from the Hazeldean Road, like south of Hazeldean Road along the Carp River towards the Terry Fox. You're saying that's
Yep.
so it's gonna that river pathway is gonna continue. So is that in the near future, or is that'll be pretty nice if they,
It would be
yeah.
when so the Kevin Haim golf course
Yeah.
is owned by a housing developer.
Yeah.
So when they develop that, part of that would include a pathway to connect.
Okay, nice. Good to hear there,
Yeah.
Counselor. Thank you.
We've seen a big slowdown in housing starts around here, so I don't want to guess on the timing, but I would think in the next few years they'll start to build that. So yeah, more to come. Okay, so I'm seeing no more hands up. There is, I think, another Q&A from Alistair. The question is, don't forget the traffic is going to be increasing more and more as new houses are going up in the Maple Grove Claridge housing development. So that's the development on the far west end of Maple Grove near Alon. And the opening of Main Street, absolutely. The signs in the middle of the road just make noise by getting hit by OC Transpo buses all night. Okay, so another comment on the flex stakes. Thank you for that, Alistair. Okay, I think that's it. Just give a few more moments to make sure we've caught up on the hands up. Yes, we have. And our Q&A panel is up to date as well. Okay, so a big thank you to all of the residents who've taken time to be with us tonight and to share your questions and your comments. Like I said, we'll continue to gather feedback. So if you're talking to neighbors in the community, please encourage them to check out my website. We'll be posting this video on my YouTube page soon and on my website as well. And then we'll be posting a summary in the next week or two of all the feedback and any next steps. And I want to say a big thank you to Louay and Karam and Osmat from city staff and to Catherine and my team who've helped out to support this meeting tonight. Hope everybody has a great evening. Take care.